Okay, why don't we dive into the sons of God topic, Igal? And this is a fascinating topic. So, what is it that, we're talking about the passage, the one that people are, we're talking about the one in Genesis 6, 1 to 4. But when we talk, I'll just read Genesis 6, 1 to 4, and then we'll talk about some of the background here. So, says there were giants in the earth in those days, and after that, when the sons of God came in the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which of old, men of renown. The first mention of sons of God in the Hebrew Bible occurs in Genesis 6, 1 to 4. So, as you know, people have pondered and argued over what this means. Who are the sons of God? Are they fallen angels having sexual interaction with humans? People are like, well, how can that happen? I mean, how does that even work? This Nephilim issue. But before we even get into that, Igal, do we need a background on like sons of God in general, like in other passages? Because obviously sons of God means different things in different contexts. I mean, or should we just jump right to Genesis 6 and try to figure out what the heck this means? I mean, how do you approach this?
Yeah. So I do think, Eric, that it is important to begin with the passage itself. Okay, so the passage itself is Genesis 6, 1 to 4, belongs to the parable history of Genesis 1 to 11. Mm-hmm. And we are in those days before the great flood in Noah's days, right? So we are given a specific historical context, right? And the passage, Genesis 6, 1 to 4, is glossed over by many Christians when they read that passage. So there are two major approaches that I noticed among believers towards specifically the question of the sons of God and the giants in Scripture. One is glossing over and just ignoring it. It's like almost non-existent. Mm-hmm. Others would defend a position that has no biblical grounding. They would say it refers to humans. The sons of God in Genesis 6 are humans. They're not spiritual beings. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's what many Christians believe. That's what many, or maybe even most Christian seminaries and theological institutions teach their students. And the pastors who are taught in those schools, they come to the pulpit, they preach, and they preach the same message that taught by their professors at their given school, right? But once we go into the core of this passage, we unfold, we explore it, we see that there is a lot going on there. And by investigating the terms that are used there in biblical Hebrew, it actually helps us to see that we are not dealing with humans in Genesis 6. In Genesis 6, 1 through 4, the sons of God are angels, are spiritual beings. And for this, I can bring up several examples right from the Hebrew Bible to make that case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what would you say? Okay, so the three primary views of the sons of God is one, they're fallen angels, or they're powerful human rulers, or they're like the godly descendants of Seth intermarrying with the wicked descendants of Cain. Are those like the three main positions?
Yes, correct. Those are the three main positions.
Yeah, and you're taking the one that they're fallen angels. That's your
yes, right. And I see that's what we read in Scripture, and that's what the New Testament confirms later on. That's the case. It doesn't speak about human rulers. It doesn't speak about any human beings at all. We see the contrast between the sons of God, Bnei Elohim. That's the expression that we find there in biblical Hebrew, Bnei Elohim, and this is the first time in the Bible we find this. It's right there, Genesis chapter 6. Okay. And then we have several occurrences of this phrase later on in Scripture where it's clearly and uniquely applied to spiritual sons of God, the heavenly host of the Lord, or his divine counsel.
Right. Okay, so, and the question is, then we have the judgment of God, of course, and it wouldn't make a lot of sense for God to flood the earth. He had never forbidden like human males or descendants of Seth to marry ordinary human female descendants of Cain, right? That's not like forbidden or anything necessarily. So there's something that links this to a major judgment that comes. So it's so hard. Is part of the problem, like Michael Heiser's book, we know The Unseen Realm. Well, some of you aren't familiar with Michael Heiser's book. He has a book called The Unseen Realm, and he talks about how we need to recover the supernatural worldview of the Bible. We don't understand the ancient Near Eastern background. We're we're Westerners, we're looking at the Bible through Westernized lens, which we are, and we don't understand the background of the Bible sometimes. And because for us looking at it as Westerners, Igal, is like, this just sounds really weird. I mean, it's weird. The passage is weird. I mean, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, so fallen angels, like physically, there's some sort of sexual something, what's going on sexually there? I don't mean to be gross. What's happening there? I mean, how does that even work? I don't understand. Maybe, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, Eric. Right. And that's one of the key questions on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's one of the theological barriers for people to accept that a sexual interaction can take place between spirits and humans, right? But if we get to chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, we read it there. When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Okay, so verses 1 and 2, right, give us the background for verse 4, right, and then we read about the descendants, the progeny, right, of this hybrid union between the sons of God and the daughters of men, right? So we read about those sons that were born to them, and those were the giants, the Nephilim. Okay, so according to Genesis 6, we enter into the unseen realm, which manifests itself here on earth. Okay, and for us as believers, for those of us who trust the Bible and we believe in the supernatural, we believe in miracles, there shouldn't be anything extraordinary in the sense of how come that could have happened, right? And there are at least two major ways of how that could have happened, physically speaking. One possibility is that, based on research, that those sons of God, those spiritual rebels, they have materialized. Okay, so
they materialize just like in Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, well, I mean, those
right.
Who materialize.
Yes, exactly. So that's one view, and the other one says it's different, and some would argue that those sons of God, they enter into male bodies. They kind of possess those males. Okay, so that's the second approach. But personally, I don't see any biblical foundation for some kind of some kind of a demon possession at that stage of Genesis 6, right?
You don't see them materializing into humans of any kind. You don't see that. That doesn't fit.
No. I do see that it's most likely some form of materializing.
Okay.
That's how I see it, right? I don't see this as a case of some kind of a demon possession in Genesis 6, right? Because we don't see any clues to that in the text itself. Okay. So we are not given many details, okay, how that could have happened, but we have examples, right, from Genesis chapters 18 and 19, right, about angels who visited Abraham and Sarah, along with the Lord himself. Okay. So we do have examples of God appearing as man and angels appearing as men, as males even. Okay, and they eat and they drink and they act just like humans. Okay. So given this biblical trajectory of theophanies and angelic appearances as humans, we have no problem understanding and accepting what the biblical text lays out in Genesis 6. There was a real intermarriage, a union between spiritual beings who rebelled against the Lord and humans on earth. And for this, we have evidence in the New Testament itself. There are at least 3 major passages that attest to the event of Genesis 6.
Okay, let's talk about that. So we have 3 passages in the New Testament that attest to. One is Jude 6, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and let's read that. That's the angel. Okay, I'm reading Jude 6. And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he is kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. Okay, so how does that fit in then? How would you tie those together again, Igal? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I understand that the letter of Jude appeals to many Old Testament events in its short letter. Okay, so we see that Jude 6 actually elaborates interprets and applies episodes from the Old Testament, and applies it toward the life of the believers in the New Testament. All right. So one of those events is that what we are actually reading in verse 6, right? About the rebellion of the angels who left their spiritual their kingdom. They left, they rebelled against the Lord, and as a result of this, the Lord punished them. Okay. So it's very important to understand that the fallen sons of God from Genesis 6 are not demons. Okay. We have to distinguish between those spiritual rebellious categories. Okay, so Jude 6 explicitly tells us that those spirits, angels that rebelled against the Lord, right? The Lord punished them. They were not allowed to return to God's presence. Okay, and they are kept in chains until the great day of judgment. Okay, so that's a key passage. Jude verse 6, chapter 1, verse 6. Actually gives us this information, takes us back right into Genesis 6, and gives us the more information about the unseen realm, and again what happened with those spiritual powers after their corruption and the evil and the sin they brought upon earth.